Good evening and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Rashmita and I'm the event planner for Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru, India. This session will run over the next 60 minutes, including Q&A. The session is being recorded and will be uploaded to our Reactor YouTube channel. I will share the link to our YouTube channel in the chat section soon. I would request if everybody please go on mute. Before we begin, please take a moment to read our code of conduct. We are all here to learn together, so please be respectful of other people's views, understanding of differences, being kind and considerate in the way you engage. The chat will be open throughout, and we do encourage you all to participate. Also, please keep your mics muted during the session. I would now like to welcome Jigar, our speaker for today's session. Jigar is a partner and senior solution architect with TechScalable and has 16 plus years of experience. He has trained more than 25,000 IT professionals across the globe. He is also a Microsoft certified trainer. But for now, I will hand over to Jigar to begin the session. Over to you, Jigar.
Yeah, hi, Rashmita. Thank you so much for giving the wonderful introduction. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining. Take out your time and joining this session, and welcome you all to the today's session. Let me share my screen, and I'll stop my video meanwhile, so that we can focus on our content, and we will go through with the agenda what we are planning for today. Today we are going ahead with understanding the how basically the full stack application development activity looks like, what kind of approach we can have. Maybe I kept only hardly 2 slides because just to explain the objective and basically to share the learn module link, so that I think you must have received this learn module link in your chat. So most of the time we will spend on architectural discussion, that whenever we are planning or going through with any such hosting, or maybe you can say service deployment and all, then what kind of options we may go ahead with it, and how that particular option looks like, what kind of approach we can plan. And from the cloud perspective, if in case any such particular activity you are looking at it for hosting your services, managing your particular environment, if in case any certain type of architectural activity we need to do, then how it works, and what are the approach we need to take care, right? So whenever you are planning any application stack, whenever you are going ahead with full stack development, so before cloud, maybe you can say that it was purely focused on on-premise development approach. But since cloud came into the picture, there are lot many, like tool chain got changed, and probably development approach got changed. The architectural point of view also got changed, and a lot of insights are part of it. So what we're gonna do is that we will be discussing about those area, that how basically the approach looks like, how we are planning to work with those particular approach. If we need to go ahead and plan any solution development, or we need to take care of any such activity, then what will be the overall activity we are going ahead, and what kind of phases we usually follow in that particular overall approach, right? So here, and also we will be discussing about one reference architecture, where you can progress towards understanding how those reference architecture can be built and deployed in real-time scenario. And if in case any such solution you wanted to plan, then what will be the way, or you can simply go ahead with those kind of activity on top of that, right? So usually, whenever we are planning any particular solution in place, any particular environment, or the first step towards building and deploying your overall environment. So I always keep it this way. Maybe you can say you may have some sort of building blocks of your resources, and you will be basically covering that how your entire solution looks like, your application development, deployment, your mapping of your particular data, automating your deployment, having your DevOps pipeline to be created, right? So variety of activity will be part of it. So there was some like engagement where I was involved in terms of providing solution, end-to-end solution towards the customer. So the always questions comes that how the overall approach will be taken care, how you're gonna build the foundation of the overall solution, what will be the approach towards building the architecture, what all the tool chain are part of it, and how you're going to progress the overall solution to be built and deployed on top of the cloud, right? So basically, based on that, maybe I can consider that there are like a couple of uh, uh, maybe standard or generic approach. Maybe if I wanted to consider, then these kind of things maybe we can plan. So that will help you in terms of planning your solution development, and probably you can have building blocks, and you will be able to talk about those area or probably provide solution towards the customer, right? So of course I thought to show you anything. Yeah, we were talking about the like building blocks, right? Where we can say we may have particular services, we may have certain type of environment, and basically Azure point of view, we can have certain, or maybe you can say the architecture point of view, we can have certain environment or activities to be taken care on top of it. So here I can say from the block building or maybe the services and solution what we are planning to approach, what Microsoft or even in general, like maybe you go ahead with any particular cloud platform or any particular standard practices, you may have some particular standard approach to be followed. And I can say in general, these are some particular uh, activity we may perform in terms of hosting or managing our overall infrastructure stack out of the box. So first of all, I can say if I'm planning with any solution to be built up, so it may get started with some of the activity, which is something you can say starting with architecting. Right. So this is your particular base, a particular step where you will be defining that how your overall solution looks like, what kind of architectural reference you can have it for your customers, and whatever the reference architecture you are planning to propose to your customer. Probably this is your particular fundamental layer where you will draw the line that what all the architectural components you're going to bring it on table, what all the tool chain you will be using to fulfill your overall solution, and how the functional activity looks like, right? Say, for example, how your data is going to store, how your particular application going to work, what could be the data processing or maybe any other reporting mechanism you are planning. So you will be designing a holistic picture of entire solution with the help of this architecting kind of options. Second thing I can say, probably based on your architecture, you will be like planning that how this entire solution going to be built and deployed. So based on uh, like your services, whatever you have identified, you may go ahead and plan that, okay, are you planning to use Azure Functions or web app or API apps or mobile backend as a service or any particular component. So based on the architecture, you may be going ahead with what all the service deployment you are expecting and how that particular reference works out of the box. That is something you can plan it out, and you can refer to those services from the back of the system. Once this second layer is fulfilled, maybe you can consider that the third layer is more specific towards the build processes, right? Because end of the day, whatever the deployment activity you are planning, at the end of the day, you need to like go ahead and build your solution, and you will be targeting that, okay, whatever your full stack application environment is there, with the choice of Python, .NET or C Sharp, or maybe you can go out with Java based application or any particular programming stack, maybe mean stack or MERN stack, you can pick and choose, and you can like start developing your particular solution. So based on your foundation, based on the identification of your particular tool chain and all, you will start working on the development cycle of your particular services. And last but not least, maybe I can say it's more focus on like how you are planning to host your particular services on top of that. So you constantly wanted that the services get automated, right? So nowadays you can consider that from the enterprise point of view, majority of the environment are moving towards ISE, right? So you must have heard about ISE, so infrastructure as a code, or people are playing a role of SRE as well. So that's basically your site reliable engineer, which works on automation side, where you will be taking care of that, whatever application code you have developed, whatever the service configurations you have, and based on the foundation of your architecture, all the resource deployment will be taken care, right? So usually we call it out, probably in infra world, maybe you can call it out as a landing zone creations, right? So whatever the environment which is something required to up and running with your services, you may end up having these particular landing zones to be created, which includes everything: your application environment, your database environment, your storage, your security, uh, your access controls, who gonna have what kind of access and all that particular stuff. And people can work on those particular services effectively. So ultimate goal over here is to provide you a kind of approach where you will be identifying that what will be the best way to plan your infrastructure stack, your service stacks, and you will be managing those activity out of the box. So ultimately, from the full stack development point of view, based on those tool chain, based on those particular component identified, you will be getting started your overall development processes and all. Now, in today's session, we will be like talking about at least one business use case, at least. So, or maybe a scenario which may help you to understand that how a certain kind of scenario can be deployed, what kind of like services available. If you are planning to work with variety of Azure services, then how effectively that particular solution may help you to work on top of that. So I strongly recommend that the Learn document link which you have received, Microsoft Learn documentation, that will give you a lot of insight regarding how the resources are going to be built and deployed, what kind of approach you should take care of it. If in case any automation you are expecting, then what are the pathway, what are the supporting tool chain available, right? So for example, there is a data explorer, there is a storage emulators are available, or maybe you can say some particular built-in tool chain available in Azure portal itself. So which one is like handy? And from the developer point of view, if you don't want to pay from day one, right? Because most of the expectation is that I just wanted to develop things locally. And if things are working perfectly fine, then I'll go ahead and push my environment in terms of cloud. So definitely you can rely on variety of open source technology stack, variety of services, which can help you to build and host your particular environment on top of that. Now, the first step, what we talked about, that architecting solution. So in your first step itself, you will be laying out the overall reference architecture. And based on that particular reference architecture, you will be going ahead with overall solution, how it is going to be deployed, how they are talking to each other, and what kind of reference module you have. You will be end up working on that. Now there are two consideration, right? Maybe let's say probably if I wanted to talk about any architecture, so you can imagine the variety of business use case nowadays. So for example, if I'm considering, there are many enterprises are coming up with the service offering called connected devices, right? So from the IoT point of view, let's take a scenario of IoT, or probably maybe I think yesterday I was driving the car, so I like passed through some toll tax and all that things I have paid. So probably you can imagine that if I wanted to build certain kind of solution where uh, the millions of records are getting triggered and generated, and you just wanted to keep a track of your particular data, right? So maybe variety of business use case you can think through. Let's say, for example, that is one scenario. Second scenario, probably you can think through that connected cars or connected devices, maybe or service provider point of view. You can say like, let's say train services, metro train services, or maybe the bus services within the city, right? So you wanted to keep a track of those particular vehicles that currently where they are, and probably based on that you can plan your particular journey, or you can plan your further activities on top of that. So if you are considering certain kind of activities from the back of the system, here you can begin with your initial part of your architecture layout and all. Maybe you can finalize that what kind of activity you are planning to take care, how your environment is going to be work in an effective way. And most important factor is that specifically mapping your data, mapping your application, and how they are going to talk to each other, whether it's a SQL data, whether it's a NoSQL data. So it's always a hustle, right? I mean, whenever you are planning to build certain kind of solution. So these kind of like questions always comes in mind when the initial layout you're gonna build on top of it. So let's talk about certain kind of scenario. Let's take an example of maybe metro train. Probably you can say that you may have metros, and those particular metros you are planning that whenever they are moving from one station to another station, you just wanted to keep a track of it, and you wanted to see that what's their current particular location, if in case any particular destinations when they are going to reach. So you just wanted to keep a track of that, and maybe you just wanted to notify to your passengers, or you need to build a system where you will be prompted with those details into the like overall system, and probably kind of activity will be done from the back of the system, right? So assume that you may have probably metro, or you can consider buses, or you can consider like if in case any particular cab service also you wanted to cover up. So maybe, of course, I mean, for cab point of view, it could be like different scenario because you may have a dedicated mobile apps available. So right now I'm considering like majorly the public transport, right? So for example, if I'm planning to keep a track of public transport with which is ingested with IoT device or sensors like implemented inside that. And I just wanted to keep a track of those particular transport vehicles and all, right? Now, first question comes in my mind that, okay, I mean, I understand that if these are the particular vehicles available, or these are the vehicles are up and running, then how we gonna get the data? Because these data may be provided or secured by the government agencies. They might gonna keep those particular data, right? So how we gonna get those informations and all? So initially I can say probably whatever the environment we are expecting, this data is going to be ingested with your particular like triggered by IoT devices, right? And you can have those particular services are pushing the current location of the particular services, the public transport services, and this data may be transformed to I can say a JSON type of format, right? Because usually if we are getting millions of records set ingested into the system, then we just wanted to make sure that how the data is getting transferred and what kind of like approach we wanted to take, how we can normalize the data. We need to figure it out like which data storage we are going to progress, so that whatever data is getting ingested into the system, we can like massage that specific data, sanitize the unwanted informations, and only keep required informations, and probably put it into some storage locations or in some sort of database which understand both the kind of formats like JSON or like relational database kind of storage and all that. So we can push that particular information on top of it, right? There was one more use case, like I mean, this reminds me just a little bit out of context. So since this pandemic situation going on, so there was a company who like get into create the N95 mask, right? So they produced those N95 masks, and their problem statement was they were getting some wastage of the mask. Like every 1,000 masks, they are getting like almost 20 to 25% of wastage. So which is like huge. And that organization wanted to bring down that wastage, and they wanted to keep a track of the overall machinery, that how at which process this wastage is getting triggered, and probably they reach up to 20 to 25% of wastage of that particular mass. So of course, I mean, again, the IoT based solution, the devices or sensors are put up in all the processes, and then like tracking started, and at the end of that overall process, the solution came in a way that okay, there are a couple of area where some machinery like become a faulty, and it was like producing those kind of defective pieces. So it was like a kind of fully managed approach where you can lay out your particular architecture, and you need to figure it out like what kind of data storage you are expecting, right? So here I can say if my particular data getting triggered via any of these particular services, we need a particular mechanism in between which transform our data, and we can put it into the system. And the data what we are getting is something in a bulk, right? We just need to like make sure that whatever the data is getting ingested into the system, then that particular information is going to be part of it. So ultimate goal over here is to provide you a kind of maybe you can say approach where the Azure point of view, we can plan the services, and if in case any such activity when you are planning, then the data transformation activity you need to add over here. So probably I can say, okay, so once we have data ingested into the system, probably I can add my particular function app somewhere in between, which helps me to play around with my data. Probably it's a serverless component, and based on the data is getting ingested into my JSON format, maybe I can pick the data. It's event driven architecture. So based on the number of events or based on the number of tasks what we are expecting, it may works, and it will helpful to you in terms of planning and configuring environment the way it is expected out of the box. So ultimate goal over here is to process your data. So here you can think through that, okay, whatever the information you have, probably you can simply host your particular serverless architecture. You may have your particular function app in place, and the role of that particular function app to provide you a kind of you can say uh, uh, kind of like data to be uh, planned and managed, and you can probably process that particular environment, or maybe you can write some particular event driven code which basically normalize your particular data. So ultimate goal over here is that you can have Azure function app, and the role of this particular function app to transform your particular data and give you some sort of like dumping of that data into specific target locations and all. So probably here I can say from the database front, uh, here in Azure we can simply plan our data storage platform with a SQL, right? Azure SQL data option available, and you can have your particular database to be dumped on top of it. So Azure SQL is offering you a kind of fully managed platform as a service. You have variety of data storage options are available. You can simply go ahead and plan whether it's a serverless, whether it's a persistent data storage if you're expecting manage instance with your legacy data storage platform, and all variety of options are there. So whatever the data transformations you are considering, that will get dumped into your like databases, and then you can have some further activities to be taken care out of the box. So ultimate goal over here is to provide you a kind of approach where you can simply store your informations into the storage location, probably database, or probably you can say even Azure storage as well, where you can plan your operational activity on top of that. Now, along with this, when you have a SQL, so definitely to progress further this activity, because what you are looking at it that you need that particular data. So here, the current location of that particular route will be captured. Maybe you can say metro trains or buses and all that. And there are some particular agencies, right? It's a GTFS. It's a kind of transport service, basically data provider, where they are exposing this public service transportation information. And probably if you want to use those particular data in your application development and all, maybe you can refer to that information. So they definitely produce that data into expecting into JSON format, and that particular data you can retrieve into your system, right? So IoT devices basically for your live tracking, and probably the respective buses or respective particular device attached to any specific route-based bus, then you need to keep a track of it, right? So you may have another data source to be made available, right? So that particular data source, I can say it will be a kind of allowing you to produce the information from the bus or maybe metro related information. So this will be giving you particular information towards the route, and all that particular data will be provided by these particular third-party services and all. And you may have that particular data ingested back into the system, so that this could be like reverse activity, because you already have data in place, and that is something going to give you some relative informations regarding route, and those data you need to capture so that you will match your services, how those particular services are going to be like up and running, and how whether those particular services are match up with the route with it or not, right? So kind of options you can do it. And from the cloud point of view, you just need to plan, or you need to think through that how this overall activity works from the back of the system in that case. So ultimately, from the cloud point of view, if in case any such activity you are looking at it, then maybe, as I said, like some public data you can access, and that will be allowing you to have certain kind of information to be retrieved into the system. So once we get the route of data, definitely you need to store somewhere in a fully scalable storage options, right? So here I can say Microsoft gonna allow you to plan with your particular storage services. You can have the dedicated storage component. Maybe you can consider that if in case blob data and all. So if that blob storage is in place, then you can simply host your particular services accordingly, and it will be allowing you to build and host your particular data on top of that, right? So you may have your particular blob storage, and behind the scene, your particular blob data gets uploaded. Your files are pushed into like each metro or bus route, whatever you have. Those route references will be part of it. And at the end of the day, these particular blob files, maybe you can dump it as in probably again as in JSON format, right? And these data probably again you can dump with some particular query string. Maybe you can normalize that data, and you can have again some sort of like storage or additional normalized database services, which is basically dumping your all your raw data on top of it. So certain kind of options, if you are expecting, then maybe like storage point of view, you can have those activity to be taken care. So here you can say this could be your T-SQL query you can perform on your particular data, and probably you will be transferring your data in a secure way from your point to point. Maybe that way you can have some TDS activity to be done. So it will be like your encrypted data, transport data services going to be help you in terms of encrypted information to be stored into the database. So in general, maybe we can say we will have one particular communication where your data is incoming from the system. And of course, you need to keep a track it somewhere, right? Like which device, which location, how the routes defined for that particular bus or metro. And currently, if it is traveling, then which particular location currently that particular device, or maybe the buses, or maybe trains, and then based on that you can keep a track of those particular data. There was another use case where entire train related data needs to be captured. So from wherever like train starts from one location to another location, there was a business use case where needs to keep a track of a lot of information. Say for example, what was the temperature of inside the coach, outside of the coach, what will be the distance like train has captured so far, and lot many informations getting thrown outward from that particular train to the IoT devices and all. So it's a kind of like kind of approach where you can plan or you can implement certain kind of activities from the back of the system, and it will allow you to push that particular information. Now, what you are expecting is that you just wanted that whenever this data gets dumped into the system, you just wanted this informations to be triggered and populated to the external user, right? So nowadays you must have seen that there are mobile apps or web apps which allows you to keep a track of your particular vehicle or your transport services, and it will show you that how many number of minutes they are delayed or they are on time, or like you can keep a track of those particular information, and you just wanted to keep populating those information somewhere in your front end. So here I can consider that, okay, there will be definitely another, maybe you can say function app. I'll go ahead with it. And that function app will be helpful to me in terms of planning my code part, right? And it will allow me in terms of capturing those particular data, and maybe I can have uh, yeah, you can say those informations will get captured inside that, and from the data whatever you have in place, you just wanted to build or showcase those information somewhere in your particular application services. So my function app is going to allow me, or maybe you can say it will help me to host my particular application services, right? You may have a web app, and this web app I can consider it as a static app, right? So Azure is offering the options where you can simply build your particular static web app, where you can have a background like developed with some JS library and all, maybe Vue.js, or there are plenty of JS libraries are part of it, right? So you can build your particular application and services where you can have your particular environment to be built and deployed, and maybe to keep up to date your particular application stack. Maybe if you want, there are two more additional component you can add over here. So one is for maybe you can say deployment point of view, and one is for monitoring point of view. So deployment point of view, I can say one of the option is GitHub action. I can use that particular GitHub action in terms of planning and managing my particular activity. And Azure is offering you a particular monitoring activity. So Azure Monitor Service is there, or you can say inside that you can have application insight as well. So basically combining this particular services, you may have a better approach, you may have a better like process to be done, and your data will get up to date, and you will get latest deployment of your services to be taken care, right? So of course, I mean, there are like, if you wanted to know more about GitHub Actions, there were like many sessions got conducted in past. Maybe you guys can refer back those recorded sessions as well. So in general, from the deployment perspective, you may have your services which will help you to keep a track of your what's currently going on. Maybe you may have a particular latest deployment or latest like application code to be dumped into the web app, and you will be able to see those information. And last but not least, you need to add one more element, which basically monitor how many buses are currently active, right? And that data may be pushed into your environment. So you need a particular additional layer, because see, right now you have your route informations, you have your particular IoT device which are keeping track of currently which particular buses are running. But you need a dashboard where you will be able to monitor the information that what all the buses are currently active and what all the buses are currently like not active. They are not on the path and you don't need to monitor them, or you need just that information once. Whether buses are or metros are active. If it is inactive, then you don't need to monitor or you don't need to capture those information, right? So in general, you can have certain kind of approach or activity to be done from the back of the system. And along with this, once we have these informations are in place, we need to plan or we need to configure certain kind of like notification systems as well, right? So probably you can say that, okay, if in case any such activity like going on, then how the overall approach looks like, what kind of mechanism you can plan. So that notification system, probably I can keep a track in a variety of way. Okay, so one of the option is basically most active information we are getting from the current location of our particular vehicle, right? So here I can say you may have a particular service tracking, and this particular tracking will be available. Maybe you can say you may have a particular logic app in place, correct? So Azure is offering you a kind of approach where you can simply have your particular logic app in place, and the role of this particular logic app is to basically trigger some particular notification systems in place, right? So if you wanted to notify to someone, maybe there will be a email notification, there will be a SMS notification system. If somebody has subscribed for such kind of notification, like, okay, uh, whenever any buses are like delaying or they are not coming, or they are running behind the schedule and all that. So I just wanted a particular notification to be like emailed or sent as an SMS, so that even I'll also keep a track of it, that what's currently going on with the services, and maybe I can like get down from my office, or I can wait for some time. Once I get that update from my backend system, probably you will get those notifications and like activities to be done on top of that. So ultimate goal over here is that uh, Azure is offering you variety of tool chain to fulfill this kind of activity. Of course, I mean, as I said, like if you are planning with any such activity, then development point of view, definitely you have this baseline of your architecture, and the data capture point of view, you may have variety of tools available which you can utilize, right? So here, if you have seen, there are many services we have talked about, like function app, logic app. We have talked about like static web app or Azure SQL database and all, right? So there are like many deployment services are part of it. So if you are considering, here is the option. So architecture may got found out. The deployment point of view, you need to figure out like what all the services. So here you can say that there are many services are part of it, probably like your Azure function, right? So maybe you can say logic app, your static web app, Azure SQL database, many particular services are listed on top of it. And then you need to go ahead with build and automate, right? So here you can consider that from the build and automate point of view. In that case, you need certain kind of tool chain to be available. So definitely initially you can go ahead with Visual Studio Code as an open source tool chain, which will helpful to you in terms of building and hosting your particular solutions on top of that. Uh, if you are working, since like function app is part of it, so maybe like working on that particular function app, we may need not may, but we need that particular function app core tools, which allows you to build your activity on top of that, and you can host your solutions. You will get a particular GitHub account, because if I'm planning to create or have my GitHub actions on top of it, then I need that particular activity to be taken care. And when you are planning or deploying any particular services from the data point of view, so there is a Azure Data Studio available, which will allow you to work with your data platform if in case any certain kind of management or operational activity or any other particular activities which you are planning to take care of it, then Azure is going to offer you like Azure Data Studio, which will help you in terms of managing and working with those particular data platform services and all. So in general, consideration of all that particular data platform is something available from the cloud point of view, and you just need to have these services to be taken care uh, these services to be taken care, and you need to plan that how these resources are going to be deployed with the effective way, right? So as I said, like you need to have these particular approach to be like done. And as I said, another options, maybe if you want to keep a track of that particular data, right? So Microsoft is offering you like, or maybe there are some open source technology stack also available, which will helpful to you in terms of keeping track of your particular informations from the back of the system what you have. So here I will recommend that if you guys are like going through with the learn link, right? So let me show you that. So if you guys are going through with learn link, right? So there is a step-by-step sandbox environment given to you. Okay. So if you go to this and let's say there is an exercise. So here is the exercise. And in this particular exercise, there are some particular steps are given to you. Maybe you need your GitHub account, you need your couple of tool chain to be downloaded on your local machine, and then you can work on it. So I always recommend people that if you're planning to, you don't want to set up anything on your local machine, then one of the simplest option is that if you have any Azure subscription and you create a like virtual machine, and inside that VM you can set up all the environment so that your development will become like simple and you will be able to easily manage that. Yeah, here it is. So you will be able to get a sandbox environment, right? So you just need to activate this particular sandbox environment, and it may ask you your credentials to connect with the services and all. So I suggest that please do not use your existing Outlook account, which may already utilize with some many other Azure subscriptions or any other Azure services related and all, because uh, sometimes I have observed that Sandbox takes that single sign-on and it may get fail to authenticate your ID, and they might not give you access. So just make sure that you work with fresh Outlook account and sign in with this particular Sandbox environment. And there are some like ready to use, at least like I can say minimum 4 hours of environment available. So probably you can simply work with this particular hands-on activity, and it will allow you to build and deploy your standard services on top of it. So you will be creating some sort of like database services. You will have access to those particular component, and there will be a database automation activities given over here. So usually we always think about the application front, right? Because application is always you have a standard options where you automate your application CI/CD pipeline, your build release activity and all. And at the end of the day, you might deploy that particular application towards the target platform. But when it comes to database, if you're looking for certain type of schema to be like monitored, and you wanted to keep a track of those particular activity, then I think just give it a try to this particular activity, and you will get some sort of background of those activity to be managed, and keep your particular CI/CD automation to be done with the help of this particular services. So ultimate goal over here from the cloud perspective is that to provide you a kind of effective solution from the Azure. And maybe if you are like connecting with any of these particular services, then you have a effective way to manage them. As I said, like those tool chains are like you can consider from the deployment point of view. You have VS Code you can consider. You may have Azure Data Studio, right? And of course, GitHub and other particular tool chains are standard, which will allow you to perform these kind of activities. So in general, maybe if we are expecting any such solution, like any full stack application development which you are expecting, then in this case, kind of architecture you may follow, and it will allow you to build and host your particular services on top of that. Yeah. So yeah, I think you guys can go through with this particular activity. At least, as I said, like you need a fresh Outlook account. Just give it a try with fresh Outlook account so that you will be able to access your sandbox environment and easily work with that. And if you're any existing IDs also working with it, then it's fine. Maybe you can continue with that. But if you're facing any challenges, then maybe you can open in incognito and then you can give it a try to execute this particular references to play around with that, right? So ultimate goal over here is to provide you fully full-fledged development processes, and if in case any certain kind of development you are expecting, then you may go ahead with certain kind of operational activity on top of that. Now this Azure Data Studio, this is something basically allowed for almost all the platform, Windows, Mac, and Linux. And the role of this particular instance is to provide you, or maybe you can say tool to provide you a kind of fully managed platform. And it's a kind of app, maybe you can say it's a kind of like runtime environment available, and you can manage your particular database engine on top of that. In Azure, let's say if you are provisioning Azure SQL database, then you have a browser available like data browser, and that particular storage browser or data browser kind of options available, or explorer available, which will definitely allow you to manage and monitor or configure your services, specifically database and all that from the portal itself. So if in case any such activity you're expecting, then maybe you may have those options available and you can work effectively on top of that. So ultimately, from the Azure front, you may have all these options available from the cloud point of view. And yeah, in case any such solutions you are planning to take care, then I think basically this is the way to go, or you can host your particular environment the way it is expected. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'm good. Any queries, questions so far? So this was more about like architectural side of it, that how the full stack app development approach we can take care of it, what are the layers or foundational layers available, and how you can begin with your solutioning on top of it. So that's basically a kind of way to go, and you can plan your overall solutions on top of that. Yeah. So any queries or questions so far? Maybe you can type in a chat as well. Let me see if any questions in chat. So I strongly recommend that you all have access to learn module. So just give it a try to work with this particular services, and probably I think that will be overall architecting path is there, and that will basically help you to go through with covering one of the section of architecting point of view. So that may give you some better insight regarding or understanding services and all, and you may have a options to be covered up on top of that. Yeah, so just go through with that. And yeah, I think where to use service bus or event bus. Okay, so Akshat, in that case, so here if you see the reference architecture what we have talked about, let me share my screen again, just a second. So here, whenever we are talking about this particular services, right? Say for example, your data is ingested into the system in a second. So probably you may have that layer to be covered up over here, right? So your function app can talk to that event hub, or service bus, and it is picking up those informations as quick as possible and pass it to the backend system. That is one way. Uh, that is like straightforward approach which you may follow. Second thing, like you wanted to keep a track of your all the bus routes and all, right? So the notification or the email or SMS which you are triggering, it has to go to the end user. So maybe there also you can bring that particular service bus kind of component, which will help you to keep a track of your particular data. So whatever the route related informations you are passing through to your backend system or to your workflow, that workflow pick up that message, and then it will trigger the activity. So whatever the payload you get it from that message, it will filter those data, and probably whatever informations you wanted to share it to your backend services, it may go in that particular sequence, right? So yeah, I think whenever you want to design or keep your loosely coupled environment, then I can say this is basically a way to go, and probably you can have certain kind of activity to be considered from that particular point. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Akshat. Okay, thank you.
Do we have any more questions? You can always feel free to reach out to Jigar. You'll get his social handles on the meetup page. If you have any questions later, yeah, you can always pick up the social handle and reach out to him.
Absolutely, most welcome.
Thank you, Rangaraju, for your feedback. Thanks, Avinash. Okay, seems like we don't have any more questions, Jigar. Thank you so much for today's session.
Yep.
And thank you all for joining us today. Please do share your feedback about today's session. Also, please feel free to use the Learn module link shared in the chat section. And also, I'm displaying it right now. This will give you access to additional resources to take your learning further. Also, please visit our Microsoft Reactor Bengaluru meetup page for more upcoming session. We have a session tomorrow, same time at 6 p.m. I think Jigar will be hosting the session for tomorrow
Yep,
as
correct.
well. So please do come and join us. It would be another interesting session. Thank you all once again and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you.
Thank you.